Okay, I think enough people have been able to be let into the webinar, so we will start now. So again, welcome everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you back to another webinar in our Beyond PFAS series. And this time we will look closely into the uses and alternatives in solar panels. And quite expectedly, the uses that pop up in applications important to the green transition raises a lot of debate, especially in the light of the universal PFAS restriction process. Is the use of PFAS necessary for solar panels? That is a very important question, and this is what we will talk about today. The recordings and the slides from today's webinar will be made available afterwards. I am Teresa Schell, I'm Head of Policy at Chemsec, and with me today I have two company representatives who will shed light on both the PFAS use and possible alternatives for solar panels. So we have Imco Goudswaard from Endurans and Hope van den Heuvel from Solarge. And for the panel discussion later on, we will also have Dr. Jonathan Kleimark from Chemsec to join if you have any questions that relate to us at Chemsec. So after the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions to the panel. So please note down any questions that you have in the Q&A box below in Zoom, and we will do our very best to respond to them afterwards. So with that, I will introduce our first speaker, Imco Goudswaard. Imco is responsible for sales and new business development of Endurans solar backsheets and encapsulants in the PV market of Europe and the US. He has an educational and professional background in building engineering and polymer chemistry and worked for over 15 years now in the PV industry. Go ahead, Imco.
Yes, thank you, Teresa. Welcome, everybody. I will share some light on the use of PFAS in backsheets in the solar panels. Perhaps before starting to dive into that use of backsheets, a short introduction of our company. Next slide, please. Those not familiar with solar panels, I can also explain exactly where this backsheet is being used. But first, Endurans Solar, we are a supplier of both backsheets and encapsulants, which are polymer films used in solar panels. We origin from a Dutch company called DSM, large petrochemical and food and feed company. That's where we also started our solar adventure about 15 years back. Then in 2021, we were divested by DSM because they completely switched from materials to food and feed ingredient business. And we were acquired by an American company called Worsen Industries. And 2 years later, we got an additional owner. It's about a 50-50 ownership, which is the second one is Riverbend, which is an equity investor. We use that capital to finance our growth and also to expand our capacity in the US, because that's where we currently produce our backsheets. Okay, in the picture you see exactly where this backsheet is being used. So it's at the rear side, and it protects the solar cells from water ingress, from mechanical load, and also from UV light. Okay, next slide. So let's have a look at the use of backsheets and PFAS specifically in the solar panels. On the left upper corner, you will see the buildup of a traditional backsheet as it is used almost for 90%, I would say, in the market. It's always consisting of a core polyester layer, and on the inside, to promote adhesion to the encapsulant, there's what we call an E layer, chemically very resembling to the encapsulant itself. And then on the outer layer, there's a polymer film, mostly a fluoropolymer film, which is adhered with an adhesive layer or laminated to the polyester core layer. And the main reason for this polymer is to protect the polyester film, which intrinsically is not stable in, let's say, humid environment. So it depolymerizes, and the fluorofilm really protects the polyester from the outdoor environment. Main requirements for a backsheet are, of course, that it should secure safe operation of the module, and also a lifetime of 25 to nowadays it's almost 30 years failure-free operation, and it should be bankable, because a lot of these modules are used in large solar fields, which are millions of dollars of value, and you don't want to break them down after 5 or 6 years. So investors in these kind of parks only use materials which are really proven and from companies which are bankable. And last but not least, it always must be the lowest cost, and that's typically in the solar market, where there's an enormous production and overcapacity and downward trend for cost. We can classify the backsheets based on this fluoropolymer outer layer. On the right quarter, upper quarter, you can see that almost 72% or 72% of backsheets used in the market are based on PFAS polymers. And on the left side, you see the two main polymers. So that is FEVE, fluoroethylene vinyl ether, and PVDF, polyphenylidene difluoride. So these are the main PFAS-based polymers used in backsheet. Then there's another, for 8%, another fluoropolymer, which is PVF, or well known as Tedlar, but that's not classified as PFAS, because simply it only has one fluoroatom connected to a carbon atom. And then the remaining 20%, you could say, is already PFAS-free. It's PET-based, so the outer layer is also a polyester layer, but then it's highly stabilized, so that's a relatively expensive layer. But for the outer 50 micron costs are still bearable, I would say. And then the other 10%, that's where also Endurans is playing its game. These are mostly also PFAS-free. And then on the right lower quarter, you can see where these backsheets are being sold. So where are they used by the solar panel manufacturers? And there you can see there's an enormous imbalance. So there's about 86% of panels are being produced in China, another 8% in the rest of Asia, and only 6% for the rest of the world. And I would say even the 2% of Europe, I know for sure this year that will be below the 1%, because manufacturing is completely disappearing from Europe at the moment. Okay, next slide. So what's the risk of PFAS in backsheets? That's mainly an end of life, so a waste issue. And that has to do that solar panels, after 25 or 30 years, they are disposed, and they are mostly landfilled. Not in Europe, because that's forbidden. So in Europe, that's the only region where they are incinerated. But if you have PFAS, or in general fluoropolymer sheets, the incineration is very costly, because you form FH, which is highly corrosive, and which means that you need to incinerate in special installations, which really increases the cost. But like I said, in the rest of the world, these backsheets are mostly landfilled. Also the production waste, because in production of backsheets, normally the outer 2 or 3 centimeters on both sides are being cut off, which we call trimming. And that edge trim is also being landfilled, especially in China, where most of these backsheets are being produced. There's also a small risk in manufacturing of the fluoropolymers, which has to do with the emulsifiers, so the processing aids which are being used in these for polymerization of the fluoropolymers. So yeah, it's a waste issue, and that also probably explains why at this moment there's not a lot of interest or risk, because well, the solar industry, I would say, is very short-minded, and it's not looking much further than tomorrow. I would say so. Let it be what's going to happen in 25 or 30 years, and there are also no penalties on using this kind of fluoropolymers because they induce a lot of end-of-life costs. So there's no difference whether you import in Europe a fluoropolymer or for instance, a non-fluoropolymer based backsheet. Okay, next slide. So are there any alternatives? Yes, well, like I showed in the pie chart, there is a polyester outer layer possible. That product is already in the market for 15 years, so that's proven. Market share fluctuates between 10 and 20%. And most of the tier 1 suppliers in China also supply that product. And when the European manufacturing was still there, most of their outlet was in Europe, because in Europe also the backsheet producer in Europe they only supply the PFAS-free, so PET-based backsheets. What we also see, because the Chinese kind of smell something is happening here in Europe, they hear about PFAS, that also has forced them now to develop alternatives for fluoropolymers, which is a bit difficult for them, because all their customers especially in Asia, they kind of force the backsheet suppliers to use fluoro. It's often in the specification, and that has everything to do with the history of solar backsheets. In the past, only the Teflon-based backsheet was used, and that really set the standard. And yeah, of course, that fluoropolymers were set as a spec in tenders. And that's something where we need to fight against to get our market share. Then next to these existing PFAS-free backsheets, there's also other developments like our products, the co-extruded backsheets, which I will show in the next slides. Then there's also a combination of polyester and polyolefin, but then laminated like a traditional backsheet. And Hype will tell something about Solarge, which is using a rigid, also PFAS-free backsheet. Okay, next slide. This is the solution Endurans offers. What we did is we placed the weak polyester core layer by a polyolefin layer, and as a consequence, we don't need the fluoro outer layer anymore, because the polyolefin from itself intrinsically is already very stable. And we can use a polyolefin layer on the outside and also on the inside, which gives you a stack which is fully polyolefin based, which also makes it easier to recycle. The performance, it fulfills all the requirements, so it has even a better water barrier compared to polyester, which is also related to the use of the chemical characteristics of the polyolefin. Because we do not laminate, but we co-extrude from the melt the three layers, they adhere very well, and there's no delamination risk. And polyolefins are the cheapest materials, or let's say the cheapest polymers you can use. So also cost-wise, there's not much of a difference compared to the polyester base. And we do already have 19 years proof in the field, so our bankability is increasing by the year. Next slide. And an additional benefit is circularity. So that means that by the use of these polyolefins and just use one material in your stack, we can almost close the loop. Polyolefins are known that by pyrolysis, so by thermal degradation at high temperatures without oxygen, you can break down the polymer to its monomers again, and these monomers can be used to polymerize the new resins again. And that efficiency is quite high, so almost 90%. So the other 10%, that is where you don't close the loop yet. But of course, there's also improvement in the technology. And also with respect to production waste, because we make use of polyolefin and don't make use of an adhesive, we can remelt the full stack of the polymer. So if we cut off the edges of 2 or 3 centimeters, then we can just grind them and feed them back in our extruders and reuse them again. So that really eliminates the production waste for us. Okay, next slide. I think that is the last. Oh, there was one more slide. Yeah, I want to finish, but going over some of the challenges we were facing to introduce our product in the market. First of all, I already indicated that fluoropolymers are very strong materials, and we need to fight against the perception that only that material can be used in a PV backsheet. Also bankability, especially as an innovator in a market which really requires bankability, that is very difficult, or at least it slows down your market introduction. Yeah, last but not least, also the business environment of solar. Like we are now talking about a PFAS ban in Europe, but in the past years, our complete customer base in Europe disappeared. So once the PFAS ban is there, I mean it's good for the solar industry, but for us as a business, it will not help because there are no customers left anymore in Europe for us. But I'm sure that also a PFAS ban will spread out over the world and will also go to US where we are active at the moment. Okay, I think that was the last one. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting presentation. And I see that a few of you have already started posting questions in the Q&A box, and please feel free to fill in there. It's always good to have a bunch to choose from. And with that, I will leave over to Huub van den Heuvel from Solarge. Huub is commercially responsible and has a technical background in the graphic and electronics manufacturing equipment sector. He has, amongst other things, previously worked in research partnerships for thin film PV based in the Netherlands, where he encountered a polymer technology that he later used as basis for starting Solarge. Please go ahead, Huub.
Yeah, thanks, Theresa. Excellent pronunciation. Many people do worse job than you. So yeah, I'm representing Solarge. We are a solar panel manufacturing company based in the Netherlands. We started this company 6.5 years ago. And basically, our start has a similar origin as Imco's story about Endurans, because SABIC is indeed the company that provides the polymer technology that we use. And SABIC invested about 20 years ago in the bulk chemistry division of DSM, basically the same origin that Imco's product comes from, and a GE Plastics plant in the Netherlands as well. So they started, maybe next slide, please, Theresa. So they started this technology about over 10 years ago. I came across this technology at Solarge indeed, because SABIC asked us to evaluate their polymers for the PV application. They see a huge opportunity for the use of fiber reinforced polymers in the build industry, in the building sector. And they see, of course, the energy generation as a huge driver for change and for renovation in the built environment. And therefore, their initial idea was, could we build roofs, let's say energy roofs, energy facades with this fiber reinforced polymer by integrating solar cells in these structures. So this idea is about 10 years old, and so we started the company to actually bring products to the market based on this. And while developing the products, we learned a lot about the advantages of using polymers to build structures. To be honest, we had to get used to this idea ourselves as well, because you think plastics, it sounds a little bit inferior in terms of material properties compared to glass or metals, and you think of waste. But I really had to change my ideas about those preconceptions, because it is excellent building material and it doesn't need to lead to waste. So I think that's what I want to explain here. And also, this can be done in a way without bringing poison into the environment. That's of course for this afternoon the main storyline. So we have a factory in the city of Weert in the south of the Netherlands. It's a 100 megawatt facility today that we want to expand to 250 megawatts next year. We're in operation now for 1 year after 5 years of developing and testing the product with development partners. And we're dedicated to growth in the coming years, because our company name already says it. In this industry, you can only play a role if you're large. Because it's really a cost game, and you drive the cost down by volume. So that's really important in our story as well. So next slide, please. Yes, so driving this growth is basically in the following 3 steps. It's the current facility in Weert. We're going to expand that facility in the coming year, as said. And then for the longer term, we have a license strategy based on product license, including manufacturing facility. And we're already talking with various parties in parts of the world to build new factories for local manufacturing of this product. Yeah, next one. So to be honest, so SABIC started this venture with its ambition to bring polymers to the built environment. But what we really found very important when we designed our products is the whole circularity of the business, and therefore you need a product that has a circular design. And why this is important is basically illustrated in this picture. So when you visualize how many solar panels are already being installed worldwide, you can basically see that as a belt around the Earth, 40,000 kilometers long and 100 meters wide. That's basically the currently installed capacity. And within the coming years, so let's say 2040, this sector will add 100 meters to this belt every year. So today it's 20 meters extra, but the sector is going to grow 5-fold in the coming 15 years. So by that time, every year, 100 meters by 40,000 kilometers of waste is being added, because most of these products have no characteristic for recycling or for circular use of these materials. Yeah, next slide. So what happens to many of these panels, as Imco said, for the backsheet, they will be landfilled or they end up under the highway, because it's basically not technically, well, technically it could be feasible to reuse the materials, but it costs so much money because the design is not made for it, that they will be disposed of. And so this is something that people in the sector don't like to talk about. There is a kind of system thought for collecting all this, basically all this waste, but we're not really reusing the material. We're basically just getting rid of it. And this is something that not many end users know. Those who are in the business for a longer time and those who develop big projects, they know, and they find ways to deal with it, managing their risk. And most of it, you could say it's not really taking care of the problem. It's more taking care of their own interest, not to burn their fingers too much in 25 years from now. So this is really something we took to our heart and basically said, this is not what we want to contribute to. We need to find a design and later also a business model that enables circular use of these materials basically endlessly. Next one. Yeah, so PFAS in solar, it's widespread. Like PFAS is widespread in many, many applications. We learn about it every day when you read the articles in the newspaper. Basically, all polymers that have a long outdoor exposure, they need some kind of protection to manage with that exposure. It's both UV stress and heat stress. And of course, moisture. So most of the polymers, they're not capable of dealing with that. And therefore, these fluoropolymers, they have become very widely used because they are extremely helpful in dealing with those stresses. It's a big issue for the environment because these are man-made chemicals that are toxic, and we basically don't have a good way to deal with these materials at end of life. So that's why they stay in the environment. And that's why it's really important to get to alternatives, and they are available, as I will show in our case as well. Yeah, so Imco already mentioned the incinerators that are being used, but also, you know, it is dealing with a part of the issue, but not with it completely. And still, you know, there is quite some PFAS ending up in the environment, and we know from investigation that basically all of us, we already have some level of PFAS in our bodies, and the same is for, you know, for the other animals on the planet, I would say. Next one. So also Fraunhofer contributed to some insight in this, and they did a study what kind of hazardous materials really remain in the environment, and so as they say, they still pose a risk to both human health and the environment with all the technology that we have in place today. Next one. So the solution that we basically decided for is to use a similar polymer as Endurans uses. It's also a polyolefin. This one is done specifically a polypropylene polymer, but it's part of the polyolefin family. And the technology that SABIC developed is to stabilize those polymers for long-term outdoor use. So with high exposure to UV, thermal load, and humidity, by stabilizing the bulk of this polymer for those loads. So it's not using any additional layers. It's really in the bulk that the material has been stabilized. And it's with a package of different stabilizers that actually can repair the material while it's being attacked by these outside stresses. So it can be used at quite a high temperature range from, well, in our climate tests, we test them from -40 to 100 degrees. High UV radiation, impact, it's very good at impact, and it's completely non-corrosive. So for example, on salty water or with other aggressive environments, it's completely not attacked. Also, it's like Imco said, it's very affordable. It's one of the most economic polymers that you can use, and it's also very transparent for light, which is of course extremely important for solar panel application. Next one. So what you see here is organo sandwich, basically is the back of our panel. So we have a lightweight panel. It's not flexible, but it's rigid. We have come to this basically product design in order to make it very robust for handling and for impact. For example, hail impact. It's not depending on any substructure to be able to manage with those impacts. It's very rigid, but at the same time very light because it's a honeycomb which is fiber reinforced. Based on this backsheet, we build up the PV panel with a similar structure as Imco showed, but then without any glass panel. So the solar cells are the traditional solar cells, like everybody uses, I would say. We're completely flexible to move with any new cell technology coming up for the future. And so the cells are being packaged between this polyolefin type of backsheet, polyolefin type of encapsulants, 2 layers of polymer below and above the solar cells. And also the front sheet is of the same material. And all these layers have been stabilized with the same technology from SABIC. Next one. So the result is something that looks very much like a solar panel. It can be mounted, let's say, on roofs or on facades or wherever. In the same way as you would do with a normal solar panel, it's only much lighter because we use less material. And it's also completely circular. It contains no PFAS. And it has a very low carbon footprint because the energy that we need to produce these panels is much lower compared to what you would need for panels with using glass or aluminum frame, for example. So our focus in the market is currently mainly on the commercial and industrial roofs. So when you look at the industrial parks in the Netherlands, because our focus currently has been mainly in the Netherlands, we're now going also internationally. These roofs in let's say roughly 40% of the cases cannot bear the weight of glass panels. So that's why this is our first market to enter. And this is also, of course, in most other countries the case that quite some roofs cannot be developed with the traditional solar panels because of the weight. So short term, this is our most important value. Long term, we believe the real value is the circularity, the low footprint, and the absence of poison that makes this a very interesting product because you can reuse both the polymers and the solar cells endlessly by making new materials for it without any downgrading of the quality. I think this is more or less. What's the next slide? I think this is more or less it, right? Yeah. So thanks for your interest.
Thank you so much, Herb. Really interesting presentation, and also that you have such different solutions to a similar problem. It's good to have some diversity when we talk about these issues. And with that, I would like to open up for Q&A, and we've had quite a number of questions already. Jonathan, welcome you too. Great to see you there. So I do see that we have a number of questions that I could cluster a little bit about markets that are not in the EU. So I have one question here. How do you see the backsheet market developing? Will companies like Endurans, for instance, who are based outside China, be competitive in markets outside Europe and Asia, where you said you are operating? And then there's another question that is similar that targets the US. So how receptive are the US-based solar companies to PFAS-free backing options? Are you seeing any increased market demand with new emerging PFAS regulations in states like, and I wish I knew which state these were. I do not, but a few. Thank you. Sorry. I don't know if who would like to answer. Imco.
Yeah, well, it's specific for the backsheet. I can say that having a production in US, because of the higher cost, you cannot compete, for instance, with Chinese suppliers selling their backsheet in Europe. Let it be selling the backsheet in China. But I would say that's mostly not because of the cost, but it's really because of pricing. At this moment, there's a huge overcapacity, not only for modules, it's along the full supply chain. And for instance, prices for modules at the moment in Europe are about 9 to 11 cents per watt peak, whereas the cost to produce such a panel is around 18, and perhaps some of the tier 1 Chinese suppliers can do that for 15 or 16 cents, but for sure not for 9 to 11 cents. So the prices are very artificial. So it's very difficult to answer a question like that if you are in a market where prices are below cost price, and that's also the reason why we kind of retreated back to US, because there we have the IRA and we have import taxes. So there we have a level playing field in the US, that for the moment at least protects us and stay in business. Because if we would not have production in the US, then we would have stopped already. We did have production in China, and there we also were forced to produce below or sell below cost price, and that was the reason why we stopped, because that's simply not sustainable for us, especially with having investors as an owner.
Thank you. And Herb, do you have something to add there?
Maybe short comment to add. So what we see is there are a limited amount of, let's say, sustainability front runners who are prepared to pay extra, and they really do that. But it's a really small group, and completely follow Imco's story on the US is providing protection that we urgently need in Europe. So you see more and more manufacturing, PV panel manufacturing companies going bankrupt these weeks. Without clear support from the governments, this is going to continue. Same for us, although we have a completely different product. People get very strange expectations of what these products should cost. And it's really not that true value that they're being brought on the market. So I think, as you see that there are alternatives becoming available that work well, they're well being tested and they perform. It's no longer needed to open Europe for these kind of poisonous products. We should do something against it, because with a small group of front runners, it's nice to start, but you cannot scale the company, and without scaling, there is no future.
I guess this is a huge challenge for the upcoming commission to deal with. It's going to be interesting.
But it's urgent. It's really urgent.
Yeah. I have one quite specific question to Solarge. Did you ensure that the additives used to repair the polypropylene do not have hazardous properties?
That's an excellent question. To be honest, I'm not a chemist myself, so I'm also asking this question internally to our people and to the people from SABIC. So what I understand is that these materials are not coming into the environment, so they're actually making sure that the polymers stay. These are chains of monomers that form these polymers. They get not chopped up, and so they're being protected for that. So what I understand, there's no material leaking into the environment from those stabilizers. So that's as far as I can say. And so for the reuse of the materials, we also use let's say the similar process. It's pyrolysis process, where you basically burn the material without oxygen, and you bring it back to the original virgin state of monomers, from which you can make any polymer you like. And a little bit of the material is being used to fuel that process, but for the rest there is zero waste. And from that point of view today, so oil is the feedstock for these polymers, but with exactly the same quality, these polymers can be made from waste plastics, and we have enough of them, and also from waste bio materials, so like frying fat or other streams from biomaterials. So for the future, we will see more and more the use of waste material and bio waste to make these kind of materials. And within SABIC, this is called the true circle process. So this is ensuring the same quality without creating any waste over time.
Yeah, thank you. And if you have any, I'm talking to the audience here, if you have any very specific technical questions, you can always come back to the speakers afterwards and send them a message, and I'm sure they will be able to fish out some more detailed answers for you. I have one question about how does it look with investments from banks? Do you see any development there? Do you see trends? Imco, do you have something to say on that?
Don't hear it a lot, but I know I'm perhaps hypnosed because in Holland, I mean, I think that there's one bank who specifically is targeting either circular or even PFAS-free type of modules, and specifically sets that requirement in its tender specs.
It's not really one bank. It's maybe you're talking about the green loan concept, where indeed circularity is a requirement to get some rebate on the loan, and this is basically earmark that you can use with any bank, with most of the big banks, to get financing on the project. Indeed, yeah.
Maybe you have some.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Overall, at least what we notice in the, let's say, the mainstream PV market, because that's where we act, there is at this moment not really an added value for offering a PFAS-free backsheet. So decisions are being made purely on performance and on cost, and PFAS is not part yet of that performance part, let's say.
There's maybe one comment to add on this as well. So this is European legislation that in Holland is called environmental performance of buildings, and this is currently only valid for new built houses and offices. It's called the MPG score of your building, and basically what it does is there is a database. It's still on a national level, but I think there's also a big need to pull this to European level, where the footprint, circularity, and also the poisonous materials are being counted, and they give a penalty in the score of these the footprint of your building. So that really already is having a value. Maybe not big enough, but I would say for the companies that look ahead, this is one of the signs where you start picking different materials.
And maybe Jonathan, do you have something to add from our own investors' work?
No, I can just add that, I mean, the investors' work that we do and the investors that we collaborate with are very interested in PFAS because it's a financial risk for them. These are mainly institutional investors because, I mean, there is a lot of litigation and a lot of economic and financial risks connected to PFAS. So I think that we will see more of that also when it comes to private equity investors in the future, that they will also focus on that to lessen the risk of investing in the sort of wrong products.
Well, I see that we're running out of time. We have some more questions, but feel free to contact us or the speakers after the webinar is over if you want some detailed answers on those.
May I pose one question to the audience, maybe?
Yes, please do. Go
ahead. I would be really interested to get in touch with somebody who could make a serious estimate of the cost to get rid of these materials in 25 years from now. We're looking for people that have that expertise, because we would like to warn our customers about what's coming up. They're really misled if they feel that with €1 you can get rid of this material in 25 years from now. €1 per panel is more or less what it costs in Holland today to make sure the panel gets taken care of. Not really, that's what I said. And so if somebody has any clue to what kind of cost we might see in the future, I would really be interested to get in touch and discuss further.
That's a great question. So would we. I hope somebody answers you. We will think about that too. Maybe that's something that we could dig into. Great question.
Many people say it's maybe the asbestos of the future. Our governments helped all the farmers to have asbestos on the roofs. It was advised to use, but they leave it up to the farmers to get rid of it. And they're not being helped at all with that. And still, those costs are just made to put it under the ground again, right? So it's not taken care of at all.
Yeah, clearly, all PFAS uses pose a problem in the waste phase. That's very important to remember. So, I mean, if I try to recall what you said and make my own conclusions, I mean, the existence and development of PFAS-free alternatives for applications like solar panels is pivotal to achieve a truly green transition, because no transition can really be called green if it contributes to the PFAS pollution. I think we're all agreeing on that. So therefore, it's really great to hear about these solutions that are not only alternatives to PFAS, but also supporting the very important aspect of strategic autonomy in the EU that we talked about, the importance of keeping this within this market. And we think that we will be able to achieve a green transition also without PFAS in the near future. And that is a really good feeling to have. And with that, I want to thank the speakers from today and tell you a little bit about our upcoming Beyond PFAS webinars. We are actually taking a summer break now, but do not worry, we will be back with a new row of PFAS alternatives after the summer, namely the 5th of September, when we will bring up the use in frying pans. You might think that this wouldn't be necessary considering all the possible alternative. But we see that in particular with the recent policy developments in France, that even such a simple case of substitution needs more information and input to the discussion. So I hope you all will have a great summer and that I will see you back here on the 5th of September. Thank you. Bye.